Your support keeps these stories alive. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell.
I never thought betrayal could come from the person I trusted most. If anyone had asked me a few years ago who I considered family, I would have said my best friend without hesitation. We had been inseparable since high school late-night drives with music blasting, pulling each other through breakups, sharing secrets we never told anyone else. I thought we had the kind of bond that nothing could shake, but I was wrong. The beginning of this nightmare started with something I was always a little uncomfortable talking about: my trust fund. My grandparents had set it up for me when I was a child, and it wasn't some endless well of money, but it was significant. By the time I turned 21, it had grown to nearly $350,000. It was supposed to be my safety net, a way to build a future, maybe buy a house, or cover tuition if I wanted to go back to school. My parents always told me to protect it, to be careful who I shared that information with. And for the most part, I was. But I made one mistake I told my best friend. It wasn't even some big dramatic reveal. We were drunk one night, sitting on his porch, talking about our dreams. He confessed he wanted a car, the car he had been obsessing over since we were teenagers. A sleek imported sports car worth more than I could ever justify spending on 4 wheels. I laughed and said something stupid like, "Man, if I had the money, I'd buy you that car tomorrow." He looked at me strangely, like he was calculating something, and in my haze, I admitted that technically, I did have the money thanks to the trust fund. From that moment, I swear something in his eyes changed. At first, I didn't notice. Life went on. We hung out, we laughed, we talked about plans for the future, but slowly, he started dropping hints. Jokes about how I could totally help him out, or how real friends invest in each other's dreams. I brushed it off as him being silly. I mean, who actually expects their best friend to hand over hundreds of thousands of dollars? But the jokes became conversations. The conversations became arguments. He told me he deserved the car because he had always been there for me. He said I owed him for the years of friendship, for all the times he had picked me up when I was down. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Friendship had always been something we gave freely, not a debt to be collected. Then one day, it happened. I got an alert from my bank about a massive withdrawal from my trust account. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe the bank messed up, but when I logged in and saw the numbers, my chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. Over $80,000 gone. The transaction description said it all. A cashier's check made out to the dealership of his dream car. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone. When he answered, I didn't even let him speak. I shouted, demanded to know what the hell he had done. "And do you know what he said?" Calmly, almost casually, he told me that it was no big deal, that I had more than enough, and that I owed him this. He said he was finally living his dream, and that I should be happy for him. Happy? I wanted to throw up. I hung up on him and drove straight to the dealership. My heart was racing the entire way, my thoughts a blur. When I got there, the car was sitting out front, shiny and perfect, as if mocking me. And there he was, my best friend, leaning against it with a grin so wide it made me want to scream. The confrontation that followed is seared into my memory. I demanded he return the car, that he reverse the payment, that he admit what he did was theft. But he just laughed, actually laughed in my face, and told me that I wouldn't miss the money. He said friends were supposed to lift each other up, and that this was his turn to be lifted. The audacity, the arrogance, it left me shaking with rage. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every memory we had shared, every secret, every laugh, every time I thought he had my back. And all I could think was, how could he do this to me? How could someone I loved, like a brother, look me in the eyes and steal from me? But the worst part was, I knew this wasn't the end. The car was just the beginning. Because once someone like that sees what they can take from you, they don't stop. They push further. They demand more. And as much as it broke me to admit it, my best friend had just become my biggest enemy. The morning after I discovered what he had done, I woke up with that sick feeling in my gut that only comes when reality crashes harder than any nightmare. I wanted to believe it wasn't real, that I had misread the account, that the withdrawal was some bizarre mistake. But the numbers didn't lie. More than $80,000 had vanished, and the paper trail led straight to him. The first thing I did was call my bank. I explained everything, voice trembling, hands sweaty as I clutched the phone. I told them the money had been stolen, that my so-called best friend had somehow accessed my account. The representative on the other end listened patiently, but then hit me with a question that made my stomach turn. "Did you give him authorization?" That word authorization hung heavy. I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't transferred funds willingly, but I had made the mistake of trusting him. And in the bank's eyes, trust can sometimes look a lot like consent. They told me they would investigate, but warned me gently. If I had shared account information or allowed access, it might not be considered fraud. I felt like an idiot. Had I left my paperwork lying around? Had I trusted him with too much? At some point, during one of those nights drinking or hanging out, had I let something slip? The thought ate away at me, twisting guilt into the wound of betrayal, but nothing compared to his reaction when I confronted him again. I showed up at his apartment, ready to tear the place apart if I had to. He answered the door with the same smug grin he wore at the dealership, and when I demanded to know how he even accessed my trust fund, he shrugged. "You told me about it. You left your info lying around. Don't blame me for using what you weren't protecting." My blood boiled. I shouted so loudly, neighbors came out into the hall, peeking through doors and whispering. I told him he had ruined my life, that this wasn't just a favor between friends, it was theft. He didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned against the doorframe and delivered words that burned into my brain. "You wouldn't even have that money if it weren't for your family. You didn't earn it. It's not like you slaved away for it. You should be grateful I helped you spend it on something meaningful instead of letting it rot in some account." I could have punched him right then. My fists clenched, my chest heaving, but something inside me stopped. Violence wouldn't fix this. It wouldn't bring my money back. It would just give him another excuse to paint me as the villain. So instead, I walked away, my entire body shaking. That night, I started making calls. Lawyers, financial advisors, anyone who could give me a shred of hope. The responses were a mixed bag. Some told me it would be nearly impossible to recover the money since the purchase had been processed and the car was legally in his name now. Others suggested I could sue, but that it would be a long, ugly process that might drain even more of my finances. One attorney I spoke to was blunt. "You need to understand something," he said. "Friend or not, this is fraud. But because of your relationship, because you trusted him, it complicates the case. Courts will want evidence, texts, emails, proof he manipulated or coerced you. Without that, it looks like you just regret giving him the money." The words stung. Regret? This wasn't regret, it was robbery. But in the eyes of the law, the line between the two was razor thin. Meanwhile, he flaunted the car like a trophy. He drove it around town, windows down, music blasting, smiling like a king. I saw him post pictures on social media captions, like, "Finally living the dream and hard work pays off." Hard work? The only thing he had worked hard at was stabbing me in the back. Friends we shared began to whisper. Some said I was being dramatic, that I still had money left in the trust fund, that it wasn't the end of the world. Others avoided me altogether, too uncomfortable to pick a side. But he was charming, always had been, and he spun the story to make me look like the greedy one. He told people I was selfish, that I was sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars while he struggled, that I had finally given back for all the years he had been my rock. The narrative spread like poison, and soon it wasn't just about the money, it was about my reputation. People I had known for years started looking at me differently, as if I had wronged him somehow. I felt cornered, humiliated, and completely alone. But beneath the shame, a fire was growing. If he thought I was going to roll over and let him rewrite the truth, he didn't know me as well as I thought he did, because I wasn't going to stop. Not until I had taken back what was mine or burned every bridge in the process. Filing the lawsuit against him was the hardest decision I had ever made. Not because he didn't deserve it, God. He deserved worse, but because of what it meant. It meant admitting, to myself and to the world, that the person I had called my brother had stolen from me. It meant dragging our history, our friendship, our years of trust into a courtroom where it would be dissected and weaponized. The attorney I hired warned me it was going to get ugly. And it did. From the moment the papers were served, he unleashed a storm of venom I never thought him capable of. He called me selfish, ungrateful, spoiled. He told anyone who would listen that I was trying to ruin his life because I was jealous of his success. Success? Buying a car with money he stole from me wasn't success, it was delusion. The first hearing was brutal. His lawyer painted him as the loyal friend who had supported me through hard times and claimed the money was given as a gift. A gift. As if $80,000 could just slip out of my account into his hands like a birthday present. I sat there, jaw tight, every muscle in my body tense, as the lies poured out. When it was my turn, I laid out everything. The bank statements, the lack of authorization, the texts where he hinted at owing him for our friendship. I spoke through the lump in my throat, voice shaking but firm. I told the judge how I had trusted him, how I had shared details of my finances in confidence, how he had twisted that trust into leverage. But the damage was already done. Some friends who had come to support me sat stiff, their eyes darting between us, unsure who to believe. After all, he was charming, charismatic, the kind of guy who could sell sand in the desert. I was the one trembling with rage, voice cracking under the weight of betrayal. In the theater of the courtroom, appearances mattered, and he knew it. Outside of court, the smear campaign only got worse. He spread rumors that I was unstable, that I was obsessed with money, that I was lashing out because I couldn't stand to see him happy. Some people cut me off without a word. Others reached out only to say, maybe it's not worth it. It's just money. Just money. As if the betrayal, the trust shattered, the humiliation, were worth less than the car he drove around like a crown on his head. The emotional toll nearly broke me. Nights turned into battles with insomnia, staring at the ceiling while my thoughts replayed every moment we had shared, now twisted by betrayal. Days were filled with phone calls, with lawyers, letters from the court, endless documentation. I barely recognized myself in the mirror anymore. My face was gaunt, my eyes hollow, my spirit weighed down. Yet in the quiet, in the darkest hours, I found clarity. This wasn't just about a car. This wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming my life from someone who thought he owned me because of our history. It was about proving, if only to myself, that I wasn't weak, that I wouldn't let someone rewrite my story. The second hearing shifted things. My attorney presented stronger evidence, inconsistencies in his testimony, proof he had lied about parts of his financial situation, and witnesses who admitted he had bragged about finally getting what he deserved from me. I watched his confidence crack, just a little. His smirk faltered. His voice lost some of its smoothness. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. It wasn't victory yet. The case was still ongoing, the outcome uncertain. But in that moment I realized something. I wasn't powerless. He had taken my money, my trust, and parts of my reputation, but he couldn't take my will to fight. And fight I would, even if it meant burning the very bridge we had built together. Because some bridges don't just collapse, they need to be demolished so you never try to cross them again. By the time the lawsuit dragged into its 6th month, I was exhausted. My days were consumed by paperwork and tense meetings with my attorney, while my nights were haunted by restless thoughts that wouldn't let me sleep. I lived in a constant state of tension, waiting for the next email, the next letter, the next hearing date. But what hurt most wasn't the legal battle. It was the way people I loved began to turn against me. It started with my parents. They had always warned me about trusting people with money, but when they found out who had betrayed me, their reaction stunned me. My father told me I should try to work it out privately. My mother said she hated the idea of me dragging a friendship through the courts. They didn't understand that the friendship had died the moment he stole from me. To them, it was still salvageable, as if a conversation over coffee could erase $80,000 of betrayal. Then came the extended family. My uncle called me selfish, saying that if I already had hundreds of thousands in a trust fund, I could afford to be generous. Generous? With theft? My cousin sent me a message on social media, defending him, saying he had earned it by always being there for me. The betrayal wasn't just from him anymore. It spread like a virus, infecting people I thought would defend me. And through it all, he reveled in it. He played the victim perfectly, telling anyone who'd listen that I was attacking him out of greed. He cried to mutual friends, saying he was being punished for chasing his dream. He posted photos of the car online, captioned with smug lines like, "Not everyone wants to see you win." Each image felt like a knife in my ribs. The pressure pushed me to the edge. There were nights when I broke down, screaming into my pillow until my voice gave out. Days when I stared at the mirror, hollow-eyed, wondering if it was worth it. Was I really going to spend months, maybe years, fighting for justice that might never come? Was I destroying myself just to prove a point? The lowest moment came at a family dinner. My parents had insisted I come, saying we needed to put aside our differences. I should have known better. He was there sitting at the same table, smiling like nothing had happened. My chest tightened the moment I saw him, but I forced myself into a chair across from him. The tension in the room was suffocating. Halfway through the meal, my grandmother, who rarely spoke up about conflict, looked at me and said, "Sweetheart, why can't you just let it go? He's your friend. Money comes and goes, but people don't." The words shattered me. I set my fork down, hands trembling, tears burning in my eyes. "He stole from me," I said, my voice sharp, breaking the silence like a glass shattering on tile. "This isn't about money. It's about trust. It's about respect. It's about someone who looked me in the eye, called me his best friend, and then gutted me behind my back. He didn't even flinch. He just smirked, that same arrogant smirk, and said, 'You'll get over it. You've still got more money than most people ever will. Be grateful.' I snapped. I slammed my hand on the table so hard the dishes rattled. "You're a thief!" I shouted, my voice shaking with rage. "You're nothing but a parasite who feeds on people's kindness and calls it loyalty. I don't owe you a damn thing." The room went silent. My family stared at me like I had lost my mind. He leaned back in his chair, calm, smug, victorious in his own twisted way, and in that moment, I knew there was no going back. The bridge between us wasn't just burned, it was obliterated. I walked out that night, tears streaming down my face, my body trembling with anger and despair. On the drive home, I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white, my vision blurred by rage. I had never felt so alone, so misunderstood, so utterly betrayed. But somewhere in the middle of that breakdown, a new clarity settled in. If I wanted to survive this, I couldn't look for validation from my family, from friends, from anyone. I had to stop begging people to see the truth. I had to fight for myself, even if it meant standing completely alone. Because in the end, betrayal doesn't just show you who your enemies are, it shows you who you are. And I was about to find out if I had the strength to finish the fight. The final hearing felt like walking into a battlefield one last time. I had been preparing for months, gathering every piece of evidence, every statement, every witness I could. My attorney told me not to expect perfection, that even if I won, I might never see all of the money again. But for me, it wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about truth, about justice, about finally standing up for myself after being humiliated, abandoned, and made to look like the villain in my own story. When the judge delivered the ruling, my chest tightened so hard, I thought my ribs might crack. The court found him guilty of fraudulent misuse of funds. He was ordered to return a significant portion of the money, though not all, because some of it had already evaporated into interest, legal fees, and losses I would never recover. The car was repossessed, sold off by the dealership, leaving him without the prize he had flaunted for months. The moment should have felt triumphant, but as I sat there, listening to the verdict, I didn't feel victory. I felt empty, because no court ruling could give me back what I had lost: trust, friendship, family bonds that had been poisoned beyond repair. He left the courthouse that day, glaring at me, his smirk gone, his face pale with rage. I knew he would spin the story again, tell people I had ruined his life, that I had destroyed a friendship over just money. But for the first time, I didn't care. His words had no power left. He had shown me who he was, and I would never forget it. Rebuilding after that wasn't easy. My trust fund, once a safety net, was scarred and diminished. My reputation among certain circles was stained by his lies, and some friends never came back. My family, well, things were never the same. Some relatives still whispered that I should have let it go. Others avoided the topic altogether, as if silence could erase the damage. But slowly, painfully, I began to move forward. I cut ties with anyone who had defended him, anyone who minimized the betrayal. I built new friendships with people who valued loyalty, not as a currency, but as a bond. I worked harder than ever, saving, rebuilding my finances, piece by piece. And most importantly, I learned something about myself. Betrayal doesn't just break you, it reveals you. It strips away the illusions, the comfort, the safety nets, and forces you to confront who you are when everything is on fire. And what I found, standing in the ashes of the life I thought I knew, was resilience. Yes, he stole from me. Yes, my family disappointed me. Yes, I lost things I will never get back. But I also discovered that I could fight, that I could stand alone, that I could survive even the deepest cut from someone I once called a brother. Do I still think about him? Sometimes. Do I still see that car in my nightmares, gleaming like a symbol of everything he took? Yes. But those thoughts don't consume me anymore, because I know the truth. And the truth is this: he may have stolen my money, but he will never steal my strength. When I look back now, I don't see the friend I once had. I see a stranger who wore the mask of brotherhood until it slipped. And I see myself scarred, yes, but standing. Not broken, not defeated, but stronger.